Hey everybody, it's Matt Johnson. We are back with another episode of Real Estate Uncensored. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the place where you get actionable ideas, insight, and inspiration to turn your real estate career into a life of freedom. We have an amazing guest. We're going to be talking about his personal story, which is an amazing one. You may already know who he is. We're also going to get into a little bit about why agents don't invest in real estate, because he has experience on both sides of the fence, and we're going to talk about maybe how to do some mindset and business structure changes to set yourself up to get into the investment side, so that you don't always have to be an agent when you're 50, 60, 70 years old, because as Jeff Kona said many times, rock stars on stage at 70 don't look that great, so maybe rock star agent isn't the right path. So, so while we wait for people to join us live, which we thank you so much for doing, just make sure if you're watching the replay here, just hit subscribe on YouTube, and then if you want the audio version, go to iTunes or Stitcher. Make sure that you subscribe there. That way you get the audio version nestled between your ears, where we so belong.
Yes,
and I'm surprised you didn't jump in, so I'm just going to bring you in, the junior grandmaster himself, Greg McDaniel, in the co-pilot seat. What's up?
Well, Matt, I was trying to be respectful of you for once in my life and let you get.
Yeah, that's why I was so thrown.
You're like, wait a minute, he's not. Wait, this is just weird. I gotta get him talking. Dude, you know what? You know when you're super tired, and when this is what happened to me on Sunday. Worked all Saturday. A lot of great things took place, but I woke up. My dumbass body woke me up 6 a.m. because this son of a bitch can't tell the difference between a weekend and a weekday. I don't know why.
So this is Sunday we're talking about?
Sunday morning.
Okay.
Super tired, and I got up at 6.
Well, you didn't say what time you went to bed, though.
It actually wasn't that late, Jason. That's the weirdest thing. I think I fell asleep. Yeah, no. If I was going to bed at like 4 a.m., then we got real problems.
That's a problem.
But I got up and I went to the fridge, got something to drink, and I went back to the couch, and I'm like, okay, I'll watch some of the TV show, whatever else. I woke up at 1 p.m. that afternoon. My body just knocked me flat on my ass, and yeah,
you needed that.
Oh yeah, big time. And then I had to get up to go to play old man slow pitch softball, which we were in the D League, which is the bottom league, okay, not the top league, and we are at the bottom of that league, and
Wait, at least you're humble. You're very humble. Yeah.
And so I was
It's not your problem.
No.
Well, not in the area of softball. Let's put it that way.
Humor is not your problem either. Yeah.
Oh no! And so I got my sorry ass up in the shower, dressed. I didn't want to get off my couch. I'm like, son of a bitch. All right, I'll support the team. I'll go there. I get to the field, and I'm looking around, going, "There's something missing here." Oh yeah, the entire fucking other team decided just to not show up. Ugh. And then we just had batting practice, and that was, yeah, we won. That's my first W that I got to experience all season. By default.
By default. Wow, that must have been a triumphant feeling.
It was. I was victorious in every cell of my body as I proudly ran the bases with my V, going, winning. Yeah, no, we just played batting practice and then went home and had a beer and had barbecued.
All right, good story.
Yeah, thanks. I thought it was pretty good.
I can tell this is not a family-friendly show.
No.
I've heard a couple of cuss words here.
Oh, there will be more.
Hide your eyes. And your ears. All right, so let's bring you officially in, Jason. Jason Hartman, how's it going today?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
It's an amazing time to be alive.
Yes, it is.
It is. We were just discussing this before we went live. So this is actually that is a favorite phrase of yours, as it comes up anytime I email you and get your autoresponder. It reminds me that it's an amazing time to be alive.
It is an amazing time to be alive.
Yes, we were talking about the amazing features of iPhones and why more people don't listen to podcasts, which I feel like is about to change, which is interesting because, Jason, you're very much plugged into the podcasting game. In fact, you have an entire podcasting network of a bunch of shows that you host or co-host or are involved in and stuff like that. So, but real quick, give us kind of the 60-second bio on who you are, where you are, and what you do, not just in podcasting, but in the real estate game.
Right. So basically, I've been in the real estate business all my life. I became interested at age 16 when I wanted to become an investor. I grew up kind of poor in West Los Angeles, California. And I for some reason, I just kind of realized after getting intrigued by it that real estate was the thing. And I really still think that. I haven't changed my mind at all. I've owned a traditional real estate company. I sold to Coldwell Banker in '05. I was with Remax, one of their top agents for some years, and then got into the investment side of the business, and now I have a business that just caters to exclusively 100% investors. We help clients from all over the world buy properties in different parts of the United States that we have vetted and we think are the best areas in which to invest. And I think income property is the most historically proven asset class in the entire world. Everybody should be investing in real estate, especially people who are in the business as agents, right?
Yes.
It's yeah, that's definitely a good thing.
All right. And then for people that don't know, give us kind of a overview of how are you involved in podcasting and where can they go to listen to what you have going on?
Yeah, so podcasting, any podcast platform, you can just type my name, Jason Hartman, and you'll find me on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, all the rest of them. And I got involved in podcasting about 10 years ago because I wanted to attract clients to my real estate company. And I remember I was driving around on Saturday afternoon in Newport Beach, California. I remember exactly where I was. I was on Jamboree Road, and I was listening to Leo Laporte, the tech guy, who you've probably heard of. He's a syndicated radio guy and a big podcaster himself. Someone called in to ask about podcasting, and I thought, what is that? It sounds really interesting. So we used to spend about $250,000 a year on radio advertising. And the problem we had there is that it did generate a lot of calls, so there was definitely a lot of activity from it. But in 60 seconds, how well can you explain the very, well, not very complex, but the somewhat complex thing of real estate investing to people? And you certainly can't gain their trust in 60 seconds. And I have a lot to say about that in the traditional real estate business, too, because I know that's a large part of your audience.
Yeah.
And I can talk about my career as an agent and gaining trust with clients and so forth, too. But that's really how my podcasting career started. And so my first podcast took off, and I started podcasting for a bunch of other topics in which I was interested, and it just grew from there. And now I have 21 different shows. Kind of depends how you count them, because some are video shows that are really just rebroadcast of audio shows. But we've done over 3,000 episodes, and we've got listeners in 164 countries. And it's an amazing time to be alive, because you could never reach those people before, right? It'd be impossible. You'd have to be a huge multinational corporation with gigantic budgets to do that, and now you can do it from your house. It's amazing. Yeah. It's an amazing time to be alive.
You're still right on that. I mean, just right on the nail, top of the head, man. I mean, Matt and I, when we started this, we didn't know what we were going to be, what this thing was going to be able to do for us, and it's opened up doors. Like, it's opened up doors for you. We've both been able to make good, strong friendships with people. There's not a chance we would ever have been able to meet these people ever in our entire lives. I mean, it's like you said, like you're sitting in, it looks like you're maybe your house or something like that.
Yeah, I'm in my house.
I have a home set up. Matt's sitting at his home, and it's just so awesome to be able to share the knowledge that people are looking for and be able to do it in a relaxed and calm setting at a zero to very little cost.
Think of it, too, from the concept of the network effect. I mean, everybody, I would hope, is becoming so much smarter today because everybody is sharing information so much more efficiently and in a frictionless manner with people all around the world. I mean, we never had access to each other like this. If it wasn't for these modern forms of communication like Google Hangouts, podcasting, etc., we would never be sharing our experiences and our knowledge now. And it's just amazing the cumulative effect over several years of learning from each other and how we can just reduce the learning curve in so many areas of life.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, you can see it more. We see it in probably sports and music a little bit more easily. The talent level getting really high, really young, really fast. I mean, YouTube videos circulating of 7, 8, 9-year-olds that are playing things musically that it took guys 20 years to learn in the 70s and 80s because the information is there on YouTube. And I think it's the same phenomenon is happening in business, but it's maybe not quite as visible. But we're definitely getting smarter and building our businesses better as a result of all this information being out there. There's no way.
That's an interesting point. I mean, years ago, though, they always had virtuosos, and but I don't know. There's probably a lot more of them nowadays. If nothing else, at least there are more people inspired to do things, right?
Yeah.
maybe let's play devil's advocate with ourselves and assume they're not actually better, that this knowledge transfer isn't occurring, which we know it is, of course. But at least from an inspirational perspective, when some young kid sees some other young kid on YouTube doing something amazing, whether it's skateboarding or playing the violin or piano or whatever, that they think, wow, I could do that.
Well, it's like the Roger Bannister, before the 4-minute mile was, now basically this is the Roger Bannister effect on steroids, on top of steroids, that people aren't living in a sole cylinder of a life. They're just not like, I don't know what anyone else is doing. No, you log in, Facebook Live, YouTube, all the different social media outlets, Facebook groups, organizations out there. Yeah, it's expanding people's scope of mindset, which is awesome.
No question.
In all age brackets.
It's true. Yes, it dawned on me here, I don't know, it was a couple months ago or something, which I should have, maybe I hadn't crystallized it like this, but to me, like, podcasting is the greatest medium for self-development, self-education since the invention of the printing press.
And it's free.
And it's free.
Yeah, free.
Incredible.
Imagine that.
That's an interesting point you just made, because when you think of I think communication, honestly, as much as everybody loves to say Gutenberg was incredible, inventing the printing press, wide distribution of knowledge, and that's all true. I'm not denying that. But I think in the past 20 years, the quality of our communication has actually declined dramatically in the area of written communication. I think, oddly, and feel free to differ with me and argue with me on this, but I think our communication quality has declined in the last 20 years in this way. Since we started emailing and texting, communication just isn't as good. The human voice is the way we were created to communicate. Certainly writing preserves things through the eons and the millennia. That's great for that. But we should be talking to each other. Because think about it. A voice communication contains so much more data than a written communication. Certainly we've all had misunderstandings with people, gotten in fights with people on social media or via email or text because they misunderstood our intent, right? And it's hard to backpedal once someone perceives something a certain way. You can't get them to unperceive it. Right. Will disregard those remarks.
You can't unring that bell.
Right? Yeah, you can't unring the bell. And so that's one thing. And another thing I'll say about that is that a very fast typist can type on a traditional keyboard at about 100 words a minute. On a keyboard on one of these smartphones, about 40 words per minute is very fast. But the average person speaks at about 150 words per minute, and you can perceive and understand and comprehend a speaker at about 450 words a minute, about 3 times faster. That's why we get bored when we're listening to a lecture. And so on a podcast, you can play them at faster speed. Now, that sounds a little funny, but you can perceive and comprehend what they're saying at faster speeds. And so, and there's so much more data. There's the cadence, the tone. Yeah, there's just a lot more data in voice than there is in written communication. So I'm a huge fan.
We were talking about this I think it was last week, Greg. We were talking about attacking your subconscious, like how important it is to listen, like listening to self-development material, how important it is to just, and how instrumental it's been that me and Greg both separately found we can point to specific things in our past that were not just books, but they were some form of audible recording, whether it was a CD set or in my case it was a cassette tape set, and we just played it over and over and over and over again. And there is no way. I mean, I love books. Literally we just came off a podcast that I run that's all about books.
Right.
But there is no substitute for that, for attacking your subconscious, for just the sheer brute force of repetition of something in your ear.
The spoken word is very powerful, and Earl Nightingale popularized it through Nightingale Conant, his company, and I spent a lot of money with those guys over the years. We don't use them, they're not as popular now, but they used to be, the big game in the audio field. So yeah, it's great.
Well, in Well, in communication, I mean, 7%, so this is a million times, 7% of communication is actual words, 38% is your tone, and 55% is your body language. So, you know, when you do video, if you do live camera stuff or on stage or anything else, you know, 55% of your communication is what you can see, and then, like you were saying earlier, Jason, is that your tone. The other 38% is all in how you're sounding, because you can say the exact same phrase, but say, "Hey Matt, how are you?" or "Hey Matt, what's up?" Or, you know, it's a totally different way of communicating that.
And you can't get that in the written word.
No.
It doesn't come through. Yeah.
No, and I'm having like I'm getting into Snapchat right now, and like I'm talking to different people on Snapchat. One, it goes away super quick, and two, I use the video as much as possible, because when you're writing it or just the audio, you know, I miss something. Not the audio, sorry. When they were writing things back and forth, like in text messages, I'm like, I don't. Are you pissed? Are you cool? I mean, what's going on? Are you being smartass? What's happening?
Right.
So, which is why things like Snapchat are so interesting, because now we can send audio and video back and forth to each other, which, like Gary Vaynerchuk pointed out, like Snapchat is almost, it's the way the human beings were meant to communicate. It disappears. It's video. Like you get the full, you get body language, you get tone, you get the whole 9 yards. So
it makes it come back. Gary loves Snapchat. And he's an investor in it, so yeah, he's part of it.
That's right.
I wonder where he likes it.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, what do you say we take a super basic real estate question, and then we will mention a couple of sponsors. Then we'll dive into, Jason, your story and the investment side, and finish out that way. So there was a question from one of the Facebook groups. It's the Lead Genscription Objections group that caught my eyes, from Connie Betts, and she says, what do you say when a seller prospect tells you he doesn't see the value of an agent since homes are selling fast and the agent doesn't have much to do? And Greg, I'll let you take a crack at it, and then Jason, I'm curious on your perspective. You've been in both shoes, obviously, but I'm very curious what you would, as an agent, what do you tell an investor?
Sure. That's really a FSBO question, right?
In her case, she specified that it's not a FSBO, but yeah, I think we can tackle it from both sides.
It sounds like the seller's thinking of going for sale by owner.
Yeah, something. Yeah, so Greg, we'll start with you. So they don't see the value because the homes are selling fast anyway, so why shouldn't they just do it themselves?
Well, these are national numbers, but nationally, I would go in and I'd have a conversation with the seller, and I'll say something to this effect, like, well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand where you're coming from. I can understand that is the perception. You know, when you see things just selling lickety-split, why would you need to pay a commission? But let me break it down for you, and I'll show you why using a real estate agent, or realtor to be precise, is your best move. For sale by owners, when they're on the market, they are... the average sales price around the country is $174,900 is your sales price. Using a realtor, it's $215,000, which is a $40,000 less without using a real estate agent. Number two reasons, timing on the market. You know what, for sale by owners, on average, are about 88 days on the market. Or using a realtor is 69 days. So that's 19 days longer that you have to live in a fishbowl and keep the house perfectly clean. And then one of my third and final points that I would point out to them is to the fact that for sale by owners, you know, their biggest stress are going to be legal and financing. For a realtor, what their biggest stress is really none. Where, you know, if you pick the right experienced individual who is a professional in this industry, you know what, they're going to be able to handle this thing like it's nobody's business, because this is what they do every single day. So owners actually have 70% more stress during the transaction, because they don't know the potholes and pitfalls and everything else that are out there. There is literally a landmine field out that they're going to walk through blindfolded at night, being hunted by a tiger. That tiger is going to be that other agent.
With their hands tied behind their back.
Yeah, that's right. Great, like drenched in honey, covered in ants. Yeah, okay. I would go with number three first, but yeah, I hear you, Greg. All right, so Jason, what's your perspective on it?
Oh, that's funny. You guys are funny. Okay, so I remember there's an old sales trainer. I even wonder if the guy's still around, but he was great, classic guy. And you know, there's the old saying, if you look at the Bible, right, the book of Ecclesiastes talks about there's nothing new under the sun. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? There's new technology, but human nature has not changed, right? And so there's this guy named Jerry Bresser. And his stuff was old when I got into the business, okay? But, he was still around last time I checked. And he had some good stuff. One thing that he had for sale by owners was he called SGA, Single Greatest Advantage. And I've trained thousands of real estate agents. I've had, many of those worked for me. Others were just seminars I did and stuff back in the old days when I did seminars for agents. And he would say that your dialogue with that potential seller who's thinking of the for sale by owner issue should be, ask them the question, what is the single greatest advantage a buyer would have in buying a property directly from a for sale by owner? Rather than what the seller perceives as their advantage, ask what the buyer thinks, right? Mm-hmm. And so they would usually say, well, okay, so why don't we role play it? I'll be the agent, and one of you guys can be the client. Yeah. Or you can be a couple, right?
That's
Nowadays,
come on,
everything goes. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have you role play with Greg.
Okay, go ahead. So Greg, you say, why should I use an agent, right?
So, Jason, help me understand why you feel that I should pay you a lot of money for what I think is not doing much.
Right. Well, so are you thinking of selling the property yourself?
Yeah. I watch HGTV, and it's pretty easy. I see those guys do it.
Yeah, good stuff. So, just out of curiosity, let's put ourselves in the shoes of the buyer for a moment rather than the seller. There's an old saying, walk in another Indian's moccasins for a mile before passing judgment, right? So we got to understand where the buyer is coming from. What would be the single greatest advantage a buyer would have in buying a property directly from an owner like yourself, rather than using an agent and making it more convenient for them, making the shopping experience more convenient? What would be the single greatest advantage the buyer would have?
To not have an agent, but to buy my house, right?
Yeah, to buy directly.
Because then we don't have to have all those pesky agents in there, trying to stick their nose into everything and giving their opinion. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's the buyer that would have that. That would be more the seller that might have that problem. I don't know. You can say whatever you want, but the typical answer is going to be save the commission.
Oh, right? I honestly had no idea what to answer that with.
That's because you're too close to it.
I don't know.
This is the problem. When people are too close to it, they don't answer the way a normal person would answer. You're supposed to say save the commission.
Okay, hold on. So hold on. Here it is.
My whole thing.
So hold on. Rewind that, biznatch. Okay, here we go.
See, this is the problem. You guys shouldn't do live shows.
Oh no, we gotta do it. Okay, so Jason, I think to answer your question, I think as the buyer, gosh, it's the almighty dollar. I don't want to pay, commissions. Naturally, I want to, get a lower price.
Right. So you think if you shop the for sale by owner market that you can get a lower price and you can save the commission, right?
Yeah, that's what I've been told by my sister-in-law's best friend's aunt's cousin's dog walking, pedicurist who sold a home in '76. That's how we do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Dog walking pedicurist. Wow, that is extremely specific.
Is it a pedicurist for the dog?
I think so.
Yeah, it depends on where the adverb is, right?
Or can be Matt's wife Julie and his 3 obese babies. They're weight therapists. Totally as well.
Okay. You guys are too much. So, you said that your goal was you think you can knock the commission off the price, right?
Yeah.
You can get a lower price. You can get a better deal.
Yeah.
So the single greatest advantage then for a buyer to shop the for sale by owner market would be to save the commission.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what you're trying to do?
Yeah.
Okay. So see. We've all heard the thing, the person who asks the questions is the person who's in control.
Yeah.
And if I ask you the question and you answer it, you're not going to deny that your own answer is correct. And
right.
So, but if I make a statement, you're going to question my statement, right? So I want to get you to make the statement. And that's what I just did. You save the commission is the goal. And you can't both save the commission. Now, granted, of course, they can split hairs and say, well, I'll give them 3% off and I'll save 3%, blah, blah, blah. Maybe. But the overall reason a person would shop the for sale by owner market is to save the commission. Obviously, I mean, why else would they? You know, that's obvious, right? So I think that Jerry Bresser technique, that good old technique, was pretty effective. I liked it. I used it a lot, but I didn't really go after the FSBO market too much myself. But I trained agents to do it. I had a lot of agents working for me. I had 65 agents at one point in my company, and so I did that. But I was a farmer, just so you know, and I can talk a bit about farming and the reason why I love farming and being a listing agent much more than a buyer's agent. So you know, I'm happy to address that. But that's Connie's question. Hopefully that answers it for her.
Yeah, I think so. That was good.
Yeah, that was really good.
All right, well, let me shout out a couple of sponsors. Greg, I'm sure you got a couple of people to shout out, and then we'll dive into to Jason's story. And yes, we do want to talk about kind of your background, like how you generate a business and farming and all that stuff. And then I want to make sure that we get to it because you are also a big fan of Austrian economics. I want to make sure that we get to your opinion on what's coming and how that fits into like Austrian business cycle theory and some fun stuff. I want to finish out with that and nerd out a little bit on economics.
Socialism sucks.
Yes, it does. All right, we just pissed off half the audience.
You hear that, Bernie?
And our viewer count went to -4.
That's right. But it was fun. Oh, I have to share the story.
You only have viewers that like socialism because your show is free. See, if you charge for it, that would be you'd only have capitalists listening because they're willing to pay for stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my God. Okay, so number one, let's get a little capitalistic and thank Viral Marketing for helping to make the show happen. So go to gregsmarketingexamples.com and watch the video that Greg has about what they do for him and how they run his East Bay video blog for real estate and all that good stuff. And then second thing is download the Homing In app where there's homeowners that are requesting valuations from real agents in the area, and there is not enough agents on the app to respond. So there may be essentially free seller leads waiting for you in this app. So it's free. Go to homingin.co or go to the App Store for your respective device, whether it's an Apple or an Android, whatever. Go download the app. It's free. See if there's free seller leads essentially that are in there already waiting for your response. And Greg.
And go Greg. So I've had a really good time talking to a lot of you guys. Steve from Kentucky, he just randomly hit me up today on a call and a text message. I called him back, it blew his mind. He's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you actually called me." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I do." And so, dude, I'm super pumped to talk to him. He's in Kentucky. We're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff when he does the McDaniel Challenge on the August 16th, which that is the next date. This is going to be the 17th, guys. It's getting out there. Tom Miller, super pumped to be joining your mastermind with Brian Casella and a few other people tomorrow and getting involved with you guys and really kind of starting to get to know you more and more. So thank you for inviting me. That's awesome. Pablo Salazar, he reached out to me, Matt. He wanted to know how he could get Michael Lee's FSBO book. So guys, if you watched that episode and you want it, just go contact Michael. Look up Michael Lee. He's super easy to find on the web and talk to him. He'll be able to get you. You can purchase a copy there. Tina, check this out, dude. Check this out. She sent me this beautiful card with a beautiful little note inside, basically just saying, "Hey, many thanks for all, for all the basically what we're doing, all the goodness that you and I are giving out on Facebook Lives, podcasts, the whole nine." So very thankful for a thank you letter, Tina. That was very, very kind of you. Spencer, dude, you pimp Mac Daddy. Dude, he is a chef out of and he's getting into real estate. And dude, we did a call with him when I was in New York doing the McDaniel Challenge because we had to change our dates with him. And I told him to go do a cooking show and build in all the time little plugs about real estate and himself and his brokerage. He just put it out today. You guys, it's all about cooking jalapeno poppers that are not fried. Cannot wait to watch it. It looks amazing. And then Kimberly found us on the show. She loves the show, loves the energy. So Kimberly, much love back to you, my player. Glad you're a part of our family. We do this for you guys because we love you. So I'm glad you're taking advantage of this. Matt and I were just coming off of another podcast, and we're talking to a gentleman, and he has a phenomenal reading list. If you guys go to leadersread.com, you'll have an absolute amazing book list that you should be starting to read from immediately. Now, Matt, I'm glad you brought it up. I almost forgot the McDaniel Challenge. good job, buddy. You saved the day. What I would like to see you do, guys, is take the McDaniel Challenge. August 17th is going to be my next time. It's 100% free. It's when you guys are going to be able to get an hour and a half to 2 hours of yours truly, moi, doing some free coaching about real estate, anything that's stopping you, blocking you, hindering you, not getting you to where you need to be. Get off the fence, you fool. You know, and just start taking advantage of this. There's no tips or tricks or anything like that. It's just getting to know each other. So please reach out to me. Call me, text message, you know, carrier pigeons, smoke signals, phone calls work really well too. Facebook Messenger, whatever, guys. Pick one and call me. 925-915-1978. Drop mic.
Okay. Drop the mic. All right, Jason. So back to you. Now that Greg has finally stopped talking. So
that was good.
So you were one of the top guys at Remax for you say a number of years, which I love the humility because it was quite a few years from what I understand.
More than one.
Yeah, exactly. I love it when guys do that. You know, so I had I had a success for a number of years, and then you find out that they were a total badass in every possible way. It's a humble thing, but yeah. Anyway, so you mentioned that you were a farmer, which I didn't know. I don't know much about your background, so I'm curious, kind of like how you generated leads and what your story is, and you ended up owning an office and all this stuff. So what was the progression like? How did you go from getting into real estate to then discovering farming and kind of building up your business?
So I got my real estate license when I was 19 years old, first year of college. I started selling part-time for Century 21, went to work for Remax about 9 months into it. I started selling really disgusting government repos in the Inland Empire of Southern California, Riverside, San Bernardino mostly. I bought my first rental property when I was 20. That was in Huntington Beach. I actually bought it from a client who asked me to take the listing, and I told him I'd rather just buy it. And so I always was interested in the investment side. So then I was working with a lot of investors. And then when I switched to Remax, I was in an expensive area, and I wasn't really doing the investment thing that much. So I remember seeing a little classified ad in the back of one of these real estate magazines that said, "Stop selling real estate and start selling yourself." And it was an ad for a newsletter. And, you know, a newsletter that would just subscribe to, stick your name on it. You've seen this kind of stuff. And you send it out via snail mail to your farm or your client list or whatever every month. And so I started farming. And this first area I started farming was called Wynwood Townhomes in Irvine, California. And Irvine is about 40 miles south of Los Angeles. And it was a newer area of condos and townhomes. And I started door knocking, looking like I was about 12 years old, okay? And I started to know all the people, and they thought I was crazy. They said, "Hey, we just moved in a year ago, 8 months ago, whatever, right? They just moved in. And why are you, we're not going to sell our house." But sure enough, you let about, I was digging my well before I'm thirsty, as the author Harvey McKay titled the book. I had him on my show, and I love that book title. He's the same guy that has all these great book titles like How to Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten Alive, blah, blah, blah. And so dig your well before you're thirsty. So I stopped selling real estate, started selling myself. I was a door knocker. I farmed relentlessly. In this one area, I kept getting beat out by a guy who actually looked like a mature person. His name was Mark, and he would get all the listings. And I remember one day on the pink sheet, which was the broker preview sheet that would come out, on Tuesdays before the Wednesday preview. Mark had like 3 new listings in Wynwood, and I went to my broker and I said, "Oh gosh, should I just give up? This is just too hard." And he said something really wise. He says, "Jason, don't suffer day to day. Add it all up at the end of the year and then decide if you're happy." And he had that kind of farmer's mentality too, because when he was an agent, he was a farmer. And I am thoroughly convinced that even now, with all this modern stuff you guys are using in the traditional real estate industry, and I am totally envious of the kind of tools you guys have nowadays. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have all these apps for real estate. We didn't have Zillow, which I know that's good and bad for you guys. Completely. And there's a lot of arguments over Zillow. But whatever the case, right? There's a lot of tools nowadays, right, that there weren't back then. But still, it comes down to relationships. It comes down to if you can own a geographical area. And in this area, Wynwood, I sold about 90 or 100 properties probably. And, my signs, once I got that thing going, my signs were just everywhere. And, with your viral video company, right? I mean, talk about virality in the old-fashioned way. Yeah. One sign breeds another. Mm-hmm. And, holding an open house, and, it's almost more for meeting the neighbors than selling the property. We all understand that, although you can do both, certainly. But just being that person in there that just owns a geographical area, because no matter how high tech we get, we all still exist in a geography. We all still exist in the real physical world, mostly in a 3-block radius where we walk to things, and we drive in and out of our neighborhood, we walk in and out of our neighborhood, we see people's signs. Mm-hmm. And nowadays you can certainly set up Facebook groups for your farm area. There are various websites you can use where you can provide everybody, they can exchange dog sitters, and the kids will run errands for you. Yeah, pedicurist, or everything, and, anything you want, right? And all sorts of cool stuff with technology nowadays. But it all comes down to just knowing people. People have relationships with people much more so than they have relationships with logos, brands, anything. And with social media, you can do a great job of that nowadays. And so I think that's very, very powerful. I literally used to get, like you showed that note that you got from a listener, mm-hmm. I used to get cards from people in my farm areas, and Wynwood was just the first one. I had a bunch of farm areas going all at once later in my career. But I used to literally get cards from people apologizing that they didn't list with me.
It serves them right.
Yeah, it serves them right.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I mean,
should be apologizing.
Powerful, that people would feel that you had that much sway over a neighborhood. And the other thing I'd say is that you want to go deep, not wide. Mm-hmm. And what I mean there is you want to really, there's no second place in real estate. Either you get the listing or you don't. And so you want to form deep enough relationships with those people in a small area. I'd rather be number one with a small group than number two with a large group.
Yeah.
So think about that. That good old rule, I think it's probably still true nowadays. Mm-hmm. I haven't been in the traditional business in 12 years. I've been just in the investor-only business. Go deep with 300 to 500 homes to start, and then go wider from there.
Well, look at you. You did that as well. I mean, you went deep on the investment side. You didn't try to spread yourself thin and go like, oh, I'm going to work with first-time buyers and these younger, sellers and all this other stuff. You're like, no, screw that. Investors.
We just do one thing, investors only, and we really just do one kind of property, single-family homes.
There you go.
I mean, we dabble occasionally. We do some apartment complexes and things like that. But the vast majority of our business is just good old single-family homes. Everybody has asked us many times, are you going to start a fund? Are you going to start a management company? No, we're not going to do that. We're just going to focus on this one thing, and that is the investor that is working hard, that has equity in their home that they can use to invest, or savings or stocks or whatever, and they want to buy 6 to 10 homes. That is our avatar client. Right. And when I was in the traditional real estate business, I would constantly get referrals from people that wanted me to chase all over town. Yeah. And, oh, my friend's got a property over here they want to sell, or they want to buy a property over here. I just try to, as much as possible, refer that business out and focus. And be number one with a small group.
I couldn't agree with you more. I call it being a real estate whore. Going everywhere, being jerked around. Yeah, being jerked around, every which way and upside down and backwards. What reality, as much as how cool you think you are, you're not that cool. You do not really know that other marketplace, inside and out. Like there's a city called Piedmont, which is right at like Oakland Hills. We're close to where I am. I was on a board of top producers 2 weeks ago, and I had absolutely no way of knowing that their way of doing business over there is that they price the property 30 to 40% below the market value to create their huge influx in offers and interest, and that's standard operating procedure.
Right.
And that's just a few miles away from me. So imagine if I was on the other side of the Bay or San Francisco or Nevada or anything else. I mean, I
In your
completely
world,
agree.
it's a hyper-local business. It
Yes.
is hyper-local. Yeah.
Hyper, like city to city, side, west side, east side, that kind of
Mhm.
super hyper local.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just try to own one neighborhood where you're the dominant force, and then try to own another and another, and get a few of these farm areas going. And I think that is the ultimate form of business. It's so efficient. You don't have to learn new markets. You know them in your head.
Yeah.
You know everybody. I mean, I would talk to people, and before they would be ready to sell, I would already know them. So they're not going to list with anybody else.
No.
Uh,
Yeah. If people just get that from taken away from today, because I get the questions asked to me all the time. Like, there's a city called Reading north of us by quite a bit, and you're like, well, can I just take a listing in Reading? I'm like,
You can, because you have a California license, but should you? That's the question.
That's exactly what I tell them. I say, no, you refer it out, take 25% of the commission on that thing. Don't spend the time going up and back. Stay here, stay prospecting, stay focused. Don't get distracted. I mean, know your
You
core.
could take a listing in San Diego too.
Yeah.
But would you really be doing any service to that seller? No, of course not. That's insane. But your license works there.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a slim 8 to 9 hour drive.
Yeah,
just a small little one.
There in a day. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know an agent who very smartly, like here in San Diego, he lives in the Poway area, and he won't take a listing in a location that's more than a 7-minute drive from his house. Because he wants.
That's a cool rule. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, he wants to be involved. He wants to show up for the inspections because he wants that one-on-one client interaction. Because he's working a high price point. He's absolutely referral driven. He wants to turn every single client into 2 solid referrals, and the FaceTime with that client is how he does that. So he puts a priority on that, and he disregards leads that are outside of like a 7-minute drive radius. I mean, it's smart, and it can be done if you have the right mindset. But
you know what this is really? I mean, one of the big lessons here that we're talking about is the concept of that old story that many of us have heard. It's the acres of diamonds story. And so many agents think that they need to go here or there or everywhere else to look for the diamonds. And all they need to do is just go deep into their own market. There's enough business there to make a fortune from. You don't need to go 400 miles south or even a half hour away to get business. The business is right there, and you can service it so much better if it's right in your geography. So I absolutely agree with that. And the traditional business, that's the way to go.
Well, we're also assuming that the real estate agents are going to be actually wanting to work, and I mean, I was,
which is an interesting theory.
It's very interesting on that one.
That's untested, unproven theory.
Unproven, for sure.
They don't want to work.
We'll be kind. It's an unproven theory.
And it's not for the listeners of the show, Matt. We have to be very clear on that.
That's
the
right.
listeners of the show are devoted professionals, and we value their professionalism at every turn.
That's right. Just don't dive through a plate glass window right this second and go hit your farm. Wait for another 15 minutes till the show ends. Then go hit your farm.
So, Matt, I want a quick smart-ass question for you. These 7 minutes of driving, is that in traffic or not in traffic?
I would assume in.
In traffic? It's in traffic? So he goes a quarter block?
Yeah, something like that. Because traffic's not quite as bad here as it is there. So anyway. All right, Jason, so let's get into the economics and the investment conversation a little bit. So let's cover the economics real quick. So you mentioned that the single-family home and why you so believe in it, is why you specialize in it with your investors. It's the single best and the safest asset class. But why is that, and how does that fit into kind of your economic viewpoint of how things are?
Well, first of all, everybody needs it. Okay, so it's got universal need, so that's very, very important. But the interesting thing about investing in income property, and why I say it's the most historically proven asset class, is that it's a multi-dimensional asset class. So you earn a return from many different elements of your investment, and that is critically important. You get a return. Well, I'll tell you one thing that's maybe I'll drill down on a particular one, and this is sort of ties in with the Austrian School of Economics concept, and that is the phenomenon of inflation. So I coined a phrase that I call inflation-induced debt destruction. And what that really entails is, look, investors all will say, and they all know, look, the great thing about owning rental property is that my tenants will pay off the mortgage for me. And that's true. We don't pay our own debts. We outsource our debt to a third party called a tenant, and that's great. But what really happens behind the scenes is that inflation is just chugging away, constantly paying off our debt for us. Because when we borrow money at fixed rates, we pay it back in cheaper dollars over time as inflation occurs. And I'll give you a real-world example so you don't think this is some esoteric theory. I teach this in my seminars and on my podcast. And we'll look at an example that happened to tens of millions of people that bought homes, borrowed money, had 30-year fixed-rate mortgages, and literally got paid to borrow the money. Okay, so this is a real example. It's a real example. If you borrowed $14,000, which is 80% of the value of the median price home in 1972, okay, and you bought this $18,000 house, you would have paid 7.37% interest. And in 1972, a dollar was worth a dollar. But 12 years later, by 1984, George Orwell wrote the book 1984, so we can all remember that year because it's scarily pretty accurate what's going on with the NSA and so forth, right? And so by 1984, that $1972 that you borrowed was only worth 40 cents. So you were writing checks on that mortgage of $101 per month. $101 per month is the payment on that mortgage for $14,000 and change. $14,600 is the exact amount, somewhere around there. And you're paying this back, and in the beginning in 1972, that debt feels kind of onerous because you're paying $101 per month, and that's a lot because a dollar's worth a dollar. But 12 years later, by 1984, you're only paying 40 cents, 40% of that amount. And so your real inflation-adjusted payment is only $41 a month, even though the check still says $101 per month, right? It's cheaper dollars that you're paying it back in. So let's fast forward now to the end, to 2001, where you make the last payment on that mortgage. Now your $1972 is worth 24 cents.
Good Lord.
Wow.
Right? So there's two terms that everybody needs to know that economists talk about. One is called real, and the other is called nominal. So in real dollars, after they were debased by inflation or devalued through inflation over time, you paid back less dollars. But in nominal dollars, in name only, the dollar was still called a dollar. The name didn't change, but the value dramatically changed. So when you adjust this over time for inflation, you thought you were paying 7.37% interest, but what you were really paying is 1.16% interest after inflation debased the value of that debt. Now, this is for a person who lived in the house. Imagine if you didn't pay your own debt at all. Because on my single-family home investments, I own apartment complexes and mobile home park too. But on my single-family homes, okay, to keep it simple, I am outsourcing my debt obligation to a tenant. They pay the debt for me, and they usually give me about $200 a month extra too. So it's a pretty good deal. So they not only pay my debt, and the debt is repaid to the bank in inflation-adjusted dollars after inflation has attacked those dollars and made them less valuable. So you're paying back in cheaper dollars, and someone else is paying the debt, and they're paying you extra. That's called positive cash flow. And you also get huge tax benefits, assuming you can qualify for them, because income property is the most tax-favored asset class in America, and taxes are the single largest expense any of us have. So it's just insane that more real estate people aren't buying their own product. That's just tragic. It really is. Granted, some of them do, but it's a small number in comparison to the number of, I mean, there's what, 1.3 million members of the National Association of Realtors, somewhere around there last I checked.
Mm-hmm.
And how many of them own investment properties? I will bet you that's a pretty small number.
About 7.
Unfortunately. Yeah, about 7. 7. They're all listening to the show right now.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
The thing is, honestly, the reason why, Jason, why people don't buy, and my father's been doing real estate for 44 years now. We always look back and we're like, he owns a bunch of apartments and everything, but he looks back and goes, we should have bought every single one of our listings, you know. But the most agents, like we joked around in the beginning, most agents honestly don't work. The average income was like $35,000 or something like that, and they do 2 deals a year, somewhere in that ballpark. And so they don't have the capital to do it.
I call it the country club mentality. Most people, and this is just true of everybody in life, it's not just agents, okay, so we're not just picking on agents too much here, but many people, we all do this to some extent, productive people do it a lot less, right? But they confuse activity for results, right? And we've got to focus on things that are actually not tension relieving, like, oh, well, what do I need to do today? I got to wash the car. That's really important because I might have a showing. Hopefully you just never have a showing and you just take listings. You're listing because that's a much better business. But and they do all this stuff it's just not productive at all, and I've seen it. It's tragic. I mean, the agents that I managed in my own company, the company I ended up selling to Coldwell Banker, they're just tremendously unproductive, most of them. It's just really scary. You've got to do things that will actually create business. That is your job as an agent,
Yeah, which being your own boss is such a double-edged sword, because like, oh my God, I'm my own boss. This is so awesome. Yeah. I don't have to go to meetings anymore. It's like, no, that means you have to double down on your meetings because you don't have a freaking check coming at the end of the month, dumbass.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which they don't get whatsoever. But also with our technology, like you were talking about before, people don't have to work the same way that like you worked and my father worked. Because I mean, I don't know when you were in full-time real estate, but my father, I mean, he remembers the MLS being delivered in the taxi as a book form, having to run around, grabbing the keys from the listing agents, not the lock boxes. There's no lock boxes.
Taxi would bring the books around.
A taxi.
I mean, I remember the MLS book. Those were just fading out as I got in. But they used to have a book. I mean, I think they still have books in some areas, actually, believe it or not. The Yellow Pages still exist. I don't know why, but
maybe in Omaha, Nebraska.
My mom has the Yellow Pages at her house.
Oh
no, my mom has.
Insult my beloved hometown. All right, Jason. So let's
with Yellow Pages, but she uses them.
We've got just a few minutes left. So what do you see happening with I briefly mentioned like the Austrian business cycle theory. So I mean I have just in observing and in talking with a few people here and there, guys that run real estate teams, they've noticed some things the velocity of things start to slow down. They're starting to notice the days on market going up, the prices, a lot of price reductions out there, more so than we have. I mean, in your opinion, are we seeing the top of another bubble or, something like that?
That is tough to tell, but I will say that I think in the higher end markets, I divide the markets into 3 types, okay? A linear market, cyclical market, hybrid market. And the linear market is the markets I like to invest in. These are the markets that are boring. They just chug along. There are places like Atlanta, Memphis, Houston, Indianapolis, Charlotte, these kind of markets, right? Mm-hmm. They're not too exciting, but they're great investment markets because you can buy a property for $100,000 and rent it for $1,000 a month, 1% of the value. That's awesome, okay?
Wow.
In the higher end markets, though, which is virtually all of California, all of the expensive northeastern markets, South Florida, those type of markets, those are all cyclical markets. And they act more like a roller coaster. They have the peaks and the valleys, and they go up and down, right? And I spent the vast majority of my life in Southern California, cyclical market. And so I think in the cyclical markets, they have got a correction coming at some point. That the prices they're just out of touch. They make no sense anymore. And that always happens. One of the things I teach is what I call the Hartman risk evaluator, where we talk about what I call the LTI ratio. Certainly all of us listening know what the LTV ratio is, the loan to value ratio. But I talk about something I call the land to improvement ratio. Because when you buy a property, you're not really buying one thing, you're buying two things. You're buying the improvement, the structure sitting on the land, the house, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're buying the land itself. And when you look at the ratio of cost between the land and the improvement, that's when you can get a good idea that you're in for a correction. And this is why I developed the Hartman Risk Evaluator, and it's an interesting concept. You can find out more about it.
I heard about this, I think, for the first time in Hawaii from an agent out there that said that there's a lot of times it's not uncommon in Hawaii for them to buy not a house but a mansion that is a little bit run down and just knock it down and rebuild something else because the land is that much more valuable than the improvement. Is that an indication, that kind of thing?
That's an indication. In markets like California, where you've got very high land values, those are always cyclical markets. Okay, they're never linear, and they always have that roller coaster type of chart, that graph, right? Ups and downs, peaks and valleys, really great at the highs and really ugly at the lows. Mm-hmm. So those are the type of markets that I do not invest in. They're great if you can ride the cycle, and you can make fantastic money if you can time the market. But I tell you, timing the market is a risky proposition. So
yeah, it is.
Mostly that's for homeowners. Just live there, get yourself a beautiful home. That's fine. But for the more conservative type of investing, the linear markets are my favorite.
Yeah,
and then there's one distinction in between. That's the hybrid markets. And these are, as the name would imply, in between the two. So a hybrid market would be Phoenix, for example. Phoenix, it has that roller coaster ride, but it's not as steep as and up and down in California, and it's not too linear either. It's kind of in between the two.
Yeah, we are due for a correction in our area of something fierce. I mean, we're carrying a lot of $2 million plus or high $1 million properties.
How many square feet are those properties?
3,000, 4,000. I mean,
okay, so yeah, your per square foot price is pretty high, but it's not as high as some. There's much higher.
You go to the peninsula, you're $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a square foot, and you're buying a POS. And
that's insane.
Stupid.
Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good for our commissions. Yeah, good for the commissions, but not good for the consumer or the economy. So watch out.
Do those people a favor. Talk them into selling and re-renting the same house.
Yes.
Because that $1 million house, you can rent it for about $4,000 a month,
Easy.
And you can take that $1 million and you can invest it around the country in linear markets, and you can get $10,000 a month from it. Mm-hmm. So you're arbitraging those two types of markets. Yeah.
Oh, nice. 100% behind you on that one, man. I hope people will go back and listen to that part again.
It's great that you realize that. Most agents won't admit that kind of stuff, so that's great.
Well, how do people take a step towards you, Jason, to learn more about your company and how they can potentially partner with you or send clients towards your direction?
Yeah. Check out jasonhartman.com. You can find my podcast there or on any podcast platform like iTunes, Stitcher Radio. Just type my name, Jason Hartman, and that's JASON HARTMAN. I'm also on Twitter, Jason Hartman ROI, like return on investment.
That's
because
awesome.
Someone else took the Jason Hartman name. Damn it.
I know. I was going to say. Oh, how dare they? And then you have to come up with something. At least you came up with something better than Greg, which is like 444. He just picked 444 for the end of something of his.
Don't bite me.
Yeah. Anyway.
God. The banter continues.
That's never stops. We are at 0 hour, so we'll have to wrap it up. Make sure to take the McDaniel Challenge 925-915-1978. Get your time booked with Greg. I'll shut him down and just do his call to action for him.
Blah, 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 blah.
And that's right. And we're back here on Wednesday, so another big interview, and we will see everybody then. Appreciate you joining us for the live broadcast.
Happy